Swindon. Over to you, Joe.
Morning all. I'm just going to share my slides too, which you should be able to see now.
That's great,
Good.
Thank you.
Right, okay, well, this is a good opportunity to remind people about Healthwatch. I guess quite a lot of the people on this session know what Healthwatch is, but there's no harm in reminding people. My name's Joe Osorio. I'm the Development Officer at Healthwatch Swindon, and I'm just going to run through a few slides very quickly to remind people what we do and why it's really important that we work with all of you to carry out our work. Stuart made some reference to the Carers Centre being a small charity, didn't he? I think. Well, they're small and small, and Healthwatch is tiny. I'll tell you what we consist of in a moment. But this is the main thing. We want people, that's people, not patients or service users, but the entire citizenship to be involved in what we do. Our job is to hear from local people about every aspect, any aspect of health and social care services, and do something with what we hear. I'll tell you how we do that in a moment as well. Here's a reminder, the NHS Constitution gives people some rights and some responsibilities. But it says in the Constitution that patients come first in everything that the NHS does, and we, that's the NHS, should involve patients, staff, families, carers, communities, and professionals inside and outside the NHS. We put the needs of patients and communities before organisational boundaries. You might sometimes doubt that, but that's what the Constitution says. And the Swindon Health and Wellbeing Strategy talks about everyone in Swindon having a healthy, safe, fulfilling and independent life, and is supported by thriving and connected communities. And we're all part of that, aren't we? But it is a fact that for many people, it's difficult to get heard. And so very often the people who are most unequally treated are the people who get less listened to or less heard. And so a real focus of our work is to try to make sure that those people who are less heard are heard and their views are acted on. Well, like everybody else, we went from being out and about in Swindon to being online and talking to people on the phone and through our website. And that's obviously constrained us in the last 18 months, but it certainly hasn't stopped people getting in touch with us in large numbers to tell us about what their experience has been, both good and not so good. So what do? Our task is set out in the Health and Social Care Act 2012. We were established by legislation in 2012, and we started work at a local level in 2013. Our job is to consult with people and to report and make recommendations about how local health and social care services can improve. Important to emphasise social care services there. It's not just about health services, it's about every aspect of every publicly funded health and social care service for people of all ages. So that is hundreds of millions of pounds worth of expenditure in Swindon. Rough guess, £750 million worth of expenditure in a year, and it ranges from children's services right through to services for people of older age. What we try to do is ensure that local people are involved in making the recommendations that we make. So everything that we do is based on what people tell us. We don't make things up. We rely on people telling us what their experience has been and what their views are, and then acting on that. We also, as part of the legislative activity, we provide information on local health and social care services. Originally, Healthwatch was described as something like a citizens' advice bureau, but for health and care services alone. And in the legislation, it actually says that our job is to provide information to people about their rights to choice in the health service, but actually it's much broader than that. The other thing that we do, or we did do, we have a right to enter and view health and social care facilities, not to inspect, but to provide a lay and independent view of what we see and hear and find out from people. And now we're restricted to doing virtual visits instead, but in due course we'll go back to entering and viewing, and we can turn up unannounced or announced at any health or social care service where services are being provided, with the single exception of children's social care services. Well, who are we? We're tiny. We've got 4 people who work part-time, who are employed part-time, and we're employed actually by an organisation called the Care Forum, which is based in Bristol. The Care Forum won the contract from Swindon Borough Council 5 years ago and has just won it again for another 2 + 2 years. So we're employed by the Care Forum, who manage the contract, but Healthwatch is an independent social enterprise, and we benefit from having the backup of the Care Forum to do what we do. Of course, volunteers, local people, that is, are at the heart of what we do. We've got 23 volunteers supporting what we do. Tricky at the moment, or less easy at the moment, for people to get really involved in what we do, except insofar as they can feed in experiences that they hear from people that they're in touch with. But local people are clearly vital to what we do, and some of them have committed to being formally volunteers and supported by our volunteer support person, Alex, who I think is on this session, so she can put me right. A reminder again that we're part of a national network of Healthwatch throughout England, legislated for. Every social services authority in England has to have a local Healthwatch. It has to be in place. Healthwatch England is the independent national champion for people using health and care services, and it has the ear of government, and it supports us at a local level to do the work that we do. It supports us in the way that we work, and we feed information through directly to Healthwatch England. We have a national database to which we contribute people's experiences, so that in real time, the stuff that we're hearing from people that we load up onto the database that we use, which is anonymized, in real time, that experience gets through to the centre and can be used for discussions at government level, for example. Things that we've been doing in the last 12 months, well, we hear from hundreds of people, either through the website or on the phone, or very occasionally people write to us as well. But we also go out to organisations and work with organisations and commission local organisations to do work with us. And so we funded Parkinson's locally, and Swindon's End Founders Voice, Harbour Project, and SWIAS, Swindon Interactive Arts Service, in the last 12 months to undertake some survey work for us. So a lot of our work is survey based to get to people that we otherwise wouldn't hear from. We've produced reports about those surveys, which are published on our website. We produced a report about hospital discharge during the pandemic. And with our colleagues throughout England, we've been monitoring people's experience of the pandemic and of the receipt or not receipt of vaccinations and so on. And we report all the time on those experiences and try to make sure that the reports get to people who can do something with our recommendations. And also in the last 12 months, we undertook a virtual visit to some care homes to find out how they were supporting their residents during the period. Well, what happens with the information that we get? We get information from all over the place, and the more the merrier. And we collate it, we report quarterly, both to the commissioners and providers of services, and if need be, we take things up straight away. So if somebody's in touch with us about an issue to do with the GP practice or something, and they really can't resolve it, we'll be in touch with their agreement with the GP practice and get it sorted out straight away or quickly if we possibly can. But otherwise our reports are collated and fed into the system to try to make sure that local people have some influence on what's going on. We report to as I said, to those organisations providing services, but we also ask for responses from them, and we're able statutorily to expect to receive responses from some organisations when we ask them formally for a response. We also report to the Clinical Commissioning Group, Borough Council, NHS England, and to the Care Quality Commission. And of course, we report back to the public about what we're finding through newsletters and through our website. Well, lots of people have said they've never heard of us, which is hardly surprising because we're competing in a huge marketplace, and we are tiny, even though there's a Healthwatch in every area in England. But we're trying to make sure that people do hear about us, and we also work alongside things like the Patient Advice and Liaison Service in NHS trusts. We work with and through and on scrutiny committees at the council, and with and through members and governors at foundation trusts and their patient experience committees. Of course, a very important part of the whole setup is voluntary organisations like those of us who are on this session today, advocacy and other groups, and we work alongside and with them. Normally, we're based at Sanford House, and just from time to time we drop in there to see if life is continuing there, and indeed it is, but not open to the public yet. But if anybody phones 497777, I pick the phone up and respond to people's calls, and we pick up emails through our website, and we tweet, and we're on Facebook, like many organisations. We do want to hear from people. It's very important that we hear about people's experience of health and social care services so we can make things as good as possible. So there we go. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I was going to suggest to Joel that perhaps all these presentations could be accessible through your website, Joel, and then anybody can get hold of them.
A huge thank you to you, Joe. That's a great presentation, and of course you've obviously, I'm not repeating it often enough, but yes, all these presentations are being recorded and will be uploaded to the Swindon VX directory on the VAS website with all the key details about your organisation, along with the video of your fine presentation. So thank you. Any questions?
Good. I've gone 4 minutes over time, I see.
I think you're okay. We'll give you a couple of questions. If there are any questions, Caroline.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I've worked in adult social care for 18 years and I've never heard of you, and that is really disappointing because what a fantastic organisation.
Well, Caroline, I'm really disappointed that you haven't. If you just give us your email address, we'll add you to our mailing list. We've got a couple of thousand people that we mail every month, and we have 3,000 followers on Twitter, and well, lots and lots of people. And it really is important that health and social care professionals are aware of our existence, because actually we could show up at where you're providing services and challenge you to tell us.
Absolutely. And rightly so, rightly so.
Okay.
So send us a pop if you want to, either mail me.
Put it in the feed. Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
Is there another question? Any more questions?
Can I just ask Joe quickly? Didn't mention? You still can't remember his name? It's been too long since we've been in Sanford House.
Good question. I know what you're going to ask.
Around the CHC funding.
Yes, Swindon Borough Council went out to tender at the end of our contract, and from April we got the contract back for Healthwatch, but our independent complaints advocacy service, which local authorities are required to commission, and sometimes they're commissioned with the Healthwatch contract, and it was for the last 5 years, but Swindon Borough Council decided to award the contract to an organisation called Voiceability, based in Cambridge. So our independent complaints advocacy service is no longer, and we're disappointed about that. It seems a retrograde step, but all is fair or not fair in love and war and in local authority commissioning, isn't it? Yeah. So our colleague Jim Hogg, who some of you may have met, is now working for an organisation called Swindon Advocacy Movement. Good for Jim. So we haven't lost him, but he's doing something else for Sam.
Excellent.
So if people want to make a formal complaint about a health care service funded by the NHS, a formal complaint, we can refer, or they can refer themselves to Voiceability in Cambridge for that support, and how they will provide that, we remain to find out.
Does that include, just quickly, does that include CHC?
It'll include continuing healthcare funding reviews, okay, and so on. Yes, good.
Thanks very much for raising that. Much appreciated. And we're